Have you ever stopped to think about what the floods ravaging our country really mean? Are they just natural tragedies? Or is there something much darker and more spiritual behind them? Today you'll hear the story of Noah Williams, a man who drowned in a flood in Alabama and claims to have seen Jesus face to face, and what he revealed about the waters will take your breath away. Prepare to discover why he said, "You don't understand anything." Before we begin, leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this message will reach. I never thought I'd die like this, drowned in my own backyard. My name is Noah Williams. I'm 42 years old, born and raised in Alabama. We've always been accustomed to storms, tornado warnings, and thunder so loud it shook the windows. But that night, everything was different. The flood alert came on my cell phone with an alarm tone that chilled my blood. I looked out the window and saw the seemingly impossible. The street disappearing beneath a muddy river, cars floating like broken toys. I ran to my daughter's room to get her, but slipped on the water already flooding the hallway. I hit my head hard on the doorframe and everything spun. I tasted the metallic taste of blood in my mouth and smelled the foul smell of dirty water, full of oil and debris. I tried to get up, but the current was already pulling me down. The house shook, creaking as if screaming in pain. Windows shattered under the weight of the water. A grotesque sound of splintering wood filled my ears. I screamed for help, but the roar of the flood engulfed everything. The sound of the water was a living monster, hungry, merciless. I felt panic grip me like a beast that bites and won't let go. I struggled, tried to swim, but there was nowhere to go. Every movement was futile, water in my lungs, an unbearable burning, as if I were drinking liquid fire. I coughed, swallowed more. I found myself beneath it, pinned against the wall, a cabinet bearing down on me, crushing me against the floor. It was at that moment that I understood. This is how it ends. I didn't have time to pray, to ask for forgiveness, to say I love you, to my family. I just felt the crushing weight of the water taking me. My muscles burned, my lungs begged for air, and then silence. The world went black, not dark like when you close your eyes, but utterly black, as if light had never existed. No sensation, no sound, a cold, silent void. There was no pain, no fear, just emptiness. For a second, I thought this was eternal death, that there was nothing beyond this. But then something changed. A breath, a cold but lively wind, a sensation of movement, as if I were being pulled out of my own body, sucked into an invisible funnel. I felt myself floating, but it wasn't me. Not this body that was struggling and bleeding. It was really me, something deeper. The water had killed me. I knew it with a clarity that hurt more than any fracture. There, hovering between worlds, I had my first terrible realization. I was dead, and yet, something called me to go further. An ancient, deep sound, like a drum beating at the bottom of creation. I braced myself to discover what came next. When I realized I no longer had a body, the first thing I felt was pure fear dissolving. I couldn't breathe, but I wasn't suffocating either. It was as if everything that held me to the world, pain, panic, even my desperate love for my family, was being ripped away in shreds. And in the void, something formed. First, a low, guttural sound, like distant thunder, then a light, but not a warm or welcoming light. It was harsh, cold, like lightning frozen in time. I was pulled toward her without resistance. It was as if the universe itself was dragging me along. And then I was somewhere else, a space with no ground, no sky, but filled with a strange consciousness. I had no body, but I had eyes that saw everything, even what I didn't want to see. It was then that I realized what was left of me, pure thought, pure feeling. And the first feeling was shame. I saw flashes of my life, not like a movie, but like knives. Every cruel word I'd spoken, every broken promise, every time I'd ignored my wife's cries to continue drinking on the porch. Floods had always fascinated me, the force of the water, but I never imagined being swallowed by it. I never thought it would be my end. Suddenly, space shook. I felt a power so immense that if I still had a heart, it would have stopped. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Something was coming, or rather, somebody, a presence so strong that all the space around me seemed to shrink. The air, if it was air, buzzed with energy. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to run. The presence thickened and became visible. Amidst that icy clarity, a figure appeared, tall, impossible to measure, covered by a light that hurt to see. The contours blurred, but there was a face, and that face was crying. The tears shone like liquid blades, cutting through the space where they fell. I wanted to scream to apologize, but I had no mouth. It was then that I heard the voice, not in my ears, because I had no ears, but inside me, like an idea that was also sound. Noah. That broke me. I had never heard my name spoken with so much love and so much pain at the same time. I trembled, or what was left of me trembled. It was impossible to pretend. There were no more lies, no more excuses, just me, naked in thought before him. The voice continued, without anger, but filled with infinite sadness. Look, and I was forced to look. There was no choice. Light opened in a window, a vision, and what I saw was not heaven. It was not peace. It was the flood, the same water that killed me, but from above, in horrific detail, houses being ripped away, children crying, parents trying to protect their children as the waves swallowed them. But it wasn't just destruction. It was something alive. The water pulsed with an energy I didn't understand. "You think you understand floods?" said the voice. "But you know nothing." And I knew I was just getting started. I didn't know if I could bear what I was seeing. The vision expanded until it swallowed me whole. It wasn't like watching a movie. It was like being the camera, the ground, the water, all at once. I felt the weight of the water crushing doors, tearing children from their parents' arms. The putrid smell of mud mixed with fuel burned my nostrils. Even though I didn't have a nose, I heard voices, not human, but something deeper. It was the sound of water, not a mindless roar, but a lamentation, an ancient lament, like a chorus of millions of souls crying in unison. The water screamed. It wasn't just destroying, it was talking. I tried to cover my spiritual ears, if that makes sense, but there was no way. I had to hear. Why? That word echoed in the current, a why so full of pain that I felt something break inside me. I saw a woman trapped in the attic, holding her son above her head until the last second. I saw a man holding his wife's hand through the truck window before the force of the water separated them. I saw the terror in a girl's eyes as the ground disappeared beneath her. I screamed, or thought I screamed, "Stop, please stop." But the water didn't stop. It rose, invaded, swallowed, and it kept crying. The presence beside me remained motionless, watching everything with me. His sadness was a bottomless pit. He didn't turn away. "Why?" I asked, sobbing without tears. "Why show this?" The voice answered like a contained thunder. "Because you think it's punishment." The space trembled. The water shimmered in impossible colors. Within the waves, I saw strangers, faces, broken souls, secret fears. It was as if the flood were a mirror. "This is not anger. This is not punishment," he said. "This is creation wounded." The word wound reverberated through space. Suddenly I understood. The flood wasn't just physical destruction. It was a revelation. The earth's pain, the fracture of the bond between humanity and the divine. The water wasn't just killing bodies. It was screaming for someone to hear. I felt shame suffocate me again. How many times had I laughed at the fanatics and who talked about prayer? How many nights had I chosen to watch television instead of praying with my daughter? How many foolish arguments, venomous words, and heavy silences? The water was a mirror of our abandonment. "They think they fear me," the voice continued, "but they have forgotten me." The figure wept uncontrollably. Its tears were thicker than the sea. Each one that fell made an impact, like flashbulbs, illuminating the horrible truth. The flood was not the end. It was the alarm. I was shaking. "What is this then?" I asked. "It is the lament. Creation can no longer bear the silence of my children." That's when I understood. The floods weren't what we thought. They weren't a punishment. They were a cry, a plea, and I had no idea what he was going to show me next. The vision shifted as if someone were turning the pages of a giant book. Suddenly, I no longer saw the flooded houses or the bodies being washed away. I was suspended above a dark, endless sea. The waves rose like living walls, but they didn't touch me. On every crest were faces, not metaphors, but the faces of real people. Crying, screaming, praying. I heard whispers coming from all sides. It was a chorus of confessions, human voices, filled with shame and guilt, words that had never been spoken aloud in their lifetimes. I heard secrets of domestic violence, betrayals, and poisonous lies. I heard the unspoken prayers, the avoided conversations, the stifled "I love yous." This wasn't a judgment with a throne or scales. It was crueler and more just, the raw truth. No one accused me, but I saw myself. I saw my entire life illuminated by flashes of this living water. I saw my daughter asking me to pray before bed, and I said, "Not today. Daddy's tired." I saw my wife crying in the kitchen while I ignored her, buried in my cell phone. I saw my sarcastically laughing when friends talked about faith. The water screamed, but I heard my own voice echoing in it. "Why would you show me this?" I asked, almost whispering. The figure beside me, that presence so strong and fragile at the same time, didn't look at me. He was staring at the same sea as me. His tears continued to fall, creating circles of light on the water, but they didn't calm anything. "You think this is my punishment," said the voice, "but it is your reflection." The words rang like cracked bells in my mind. Reflection. The water held no hatred. It sought no revenge. It showed who we truly were when no one was looking. It was a mirror impossible to break. And then I felt something tearing at my conscience. Every cruel word I spoke, every selfish act, every prayer left unsaid was a drop in that ocean. Not just mine, everyone's. A collective sea formed by the small deaths of love in the world. I felt smaller than a grain of sand. "This isn't just Alabama," he said, his voice echoing with the rumble of thunder and the softness of a whisper. "It's the whole world." The waves showed distant cities, flooded streets, lost lives, but also cold, indifferent faces, saying, "It's not my problem." I saw living rooms filled with people in silence, unable to speak of God or to each other. Shame crushed me. I fell to my knees, or what passed for knees in the state I was in. "What do you want from us?" I cried, lipless, but the pain was real. He just looked at me with eyes that glowed like furnaces, not with anger, but with grief. "Let them hear." The waves crashed hard. "Let them wake up." The water seemed to howl. "Let them come back." I wept, not just for myself, but for all of us, because in that moment I understood it wasn't God punishing us. It was the earth begging us to remember him, and that was just the beginning. The vision shifted again, and I was thrown into a place that didn't seem made of water or air or ground. It was a translucent expanse, where currents of light and shadow coiled like celestial serpents. It seemed infinite, yet suffocating at the same time. The presence beside me, Jesus, I knew without a doubt now, remained silent. His tears still fell, silent, creating luminous waves that spread out into the void. I wanted to beg him to stop, to spare me from that vision, but I couldn't. It was as if I'd forgotten how to beg. Amidst that immensity, images began to appear, not of people, but of places. Mountains crumbling like sand castles, forests burning until the ground turned to ash, rivers boiling, overflowing not only with water but with hatred. Human hatred poured into garbage and poison and neglect. I heard the earth cry, not a natural sound, but an ancient lament, like a dirge echoing in the bones of the world. It was a song made of millions of voices, animals, trees, the wind itself. "They do not understand," Jesus said, and his voice was deep as suppressed thunder. "They do not hear." The vision descended closer. I saw Alabama, my home, the streets I thought safe and being swallowed by mud. But it wasn't just water. It was the condensed pain of years and years of contempt, of greed, of forgotten prayers. The waves were alive. Within them, I saw images from the past, children laughing in backyards, mothers cradling babies, families gathering to pray before meals. Images began to tremble, distort, disappear. In their place appeared cold rooms, people sitting in silence, screens glowing on expressionless faces. The water roared. "This is not punishment," Jesus said, his voice thick with tears. "This is lamentation." The word regret echoed like a hammer in my mind. I looked at him. I wanted to ask if there was any way to stop it. I wanted to say, "It's not fair," but the words died inside me, because I knew it wasn't him making this happen. It was us, all of us. I saw my own life projected into the water, my failures, my spiritual laziness, The broken promises to be a better father, a present husband, the times I preferred to criticize the church rather than pray, the times I judged others as hypocrites, while I myself wouldn't kneel. I felt the water envelop me, cold, heavy, not to kill me again, but to force me to see. Creation groans, he said, and the sound of that sentence seemed to split the universe. I saw entire cities covered in black water, but at the same time, deep within there was something shining, fragile, but real, a thread of light. Hope wasn't dead, but it was nearly drowning. "What can I do?" I begged, my voice breaking. He looked at me with eyes that held all the pain and all the love in the world. "Cord?" The sound was like a burst of brightness that blinded me for an instant. "And make them listen." The water shuddered as if it had heard the order. I felt the weight of responsibility crush me, but there was no time to reflect, because the vision was shifting again, taking me even deeper. As light exploded around me, I found myself falling, or rather, being sucked, down an endless corridor. The walls seemed made of living smoke, writhing as if screaming soundlessly. I felt myself being torn apart from within. There was no air, no floor, just a tunnel of pure agony, cold as the void between the stars. And then, with a sharp snap, I stopped. I was in a flat, gray, endless field. There was no sound, there was no wind, but there were millions of shadows, human figures, crouched, motionless, trembling. I couldn't see their faces, but I felt the weight of shame they carried. It was suffocating. Jesus stood beside me, still weeping. The tears fell endlessly, wetting the dry ground, but the earth wouldn't absorb them. It spat them back out, as if rejecting even the comfort. "What is this place?" I asked. He didn't answer me right away. Instead, he held out his hand, and the landscape changed. The shadows became clearer. They were people I recognized, neighbors, co-workers, strangers with familiar faces. In their chests, where their hearts should have been, were dark, empty holes. "Here," he said finally, "is where prayers die." The sentence struck me like a bolt of lightning. I shuddered. "Like this?" He made me look closer. Inside the holes, I saw memories, family fights, awkward silences, cruel words. I saw myself, pushing my daughter off my lap to answer the phone. I saw my bored face during prayer before dinner. "The unspoken prayers," he explained, his voice sadder than I ever thought possible. "The ones that never rose, the ones that were stifled by haste, by pride, by disbelief." The ground shook. The shadows moaned in a low chorus, a symphony of regret. I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't. I fell to my knees, crying. "I didn't know. God, I didn't know." "You didn't want to know." The accusation came not with anger, but with a pain so deep it felt like the world itself was sobbing. Floodwater appeared then, gushing from cracks in the ground. But it wasn't clean. It was black, thick as ink. Within it floated dead words, interrupted prayers, empty promises, muttered insults. I realized, horrified, that the flood wasn't just carrying away furniture, cars and bodies. It was carrying our words, everything we said wrong, everything we failed to say. "Water is a mirror," he said, "and also a messenger. She does not bear my wrath," he continued in a firm voice. "She bears the weight of your silence." The sentence hurt more than any physical punishment. I fell face down on the floor, sobbing like a child, because I knew it was true. And as I cried, I heard the water rising again, ready to swallow me. But I couldn't run away. He wouldn't let me turn my face away. "Look," he ordered, and I knew I hadn't seen anything yet. When I obeyed and lifted my face, I was no longer in that gray field. I was yanked from it like a hooked fish, violently pulled somewhere else. I felt myself being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. Suddenly, I was in a space so vast I couldn't see the end. It was like being inside a glass globe, but without walls. Around me hovered thousands, millions of shapes, both bright and shadowy, like scrolls floating in the air. Each one stirred, alive. Jesus was there, now clearer than ever. His eyes were two suns filled with sadness. He raised his arm, and the shapes began to spin around us. "Look closely," he said. I saw what they were. Words, not letters on paper. Living, throbbing, pulsating words. Some shone like stars, Others trembled like worms. I approached a word pulsing with golden light and touched it. A warmth spread through me. I saw the scene that had spawned it. A mother saying, "I forgive you," with tears in her eyes. The word exploded into sparks that spread, illuminating other words, touching other souls. Words of life, he explained, without emotion. They don't die, they build. I turned to another. This one trembled with darkness. When I touched it, a chill filled me. I saw a man shouting at his son, "You're worthless." I saw the boy grow crooked inside, repeating the same hatred. The word multiplied, spreading like mold on fresh bread. "Words of death," he said. "They don't disappear. They defile." I fell to my knees, trembling. I remembered so many things I had said. To my wife, to my daughter, to my colleagues. Venomous ironies, judgments disguised as jokes, heavy silences. I understood that even what we don't say is a word. "What about the floods?" I asked, my voice breaking. Jesus looked at me. His eyes glinted with pain. "You think floods are just water," he said, "but they carry the weight of these words. They wash away, but they also expose. When the river floods homes, it doesn't just take furniture. It takes broken promises, insults spoken, prayers unanswered. I saw then, with sacred terror, the floodwaters flowing into this space. Within them floated black words, coiled like serpents, but also some lights, fragile as candles in a storm. Even in disaster, he said, there are words of hope, prayers said at the last second, cries of repentance. They shine, and I saw it. A woman clutching her son on the roof, saying, "God, save us." Those words became a star. My chest tightened. "Why show me this?" I begged. "Because you will forget," he replied, with a sadness that hurt more than any condemnation. "And they will forget too." I started crying again. I couldn't stop myself, because I knew it was true. Make them remember. The order resounded, but the vision wasn't over. It was just transforming once more, pulling me into something even deeper and more terrible. The scenery changed so abruptly that I felt nauseous, if a spirit can feel that. In a blink, I was suspended in midair, above a flooded city. It wasn't a painting or a symbol. It was real. I saw every detail as if I had eyes in 1,000 places at once. It was Alabama, my home, but devastated. The streets were black rivers, houses ripped from their foundations, cars piled up like broken toys. On rooftops, people clung to each other, screaming. I saw a dog barking, trying to bite the waves to save a boy clinging to it. The noise was deafening, not just from the pounding water, but from the screams, human cries, pure despair. "God, help me. Don't abandon us. Please, please." The voices beat on me like hammers, and in the midst of it, other voices, lower, older, colder. "God does not exist. If he existed, he wouldn't do that. That's just nature." These last ones sounded hollow as open coffins. Jesus appeared beside me without making a sound. He just was. "But your face, I will never forget. Never." He wept without ceasing, and his tears fell directly into the water, creating whirlpools of light that tried to contain the fury. But they couldn't. I saw the tears dissolve into the mud. "Why are you crying?" I asked, sobbing. He slowly turned his face to me. His eyes were sadder than any death. "Because I love them," he said, "and they forgot." The roar of the flood seemed to grow louder, as if offended by this truth. I saw distorted faces within the waters. Anger, fear, pride. The water didn't just destroy. It told the truth of every heart. "They think I'm punishing them," he said, "but I'm begging them to come back." The waves grew, rising like walls. Within them, images flashed. People arguing about religion while ignoring the poor. Preachers shouting condemnation while living in luxury. Families praying loudly on Sunday but not speaking to each other the rest of the week. The water spat it all out, like a body rejecting poison. I started to shake. "They won't understand," I whispered, my voice breaking. Jesus looked deep into my eyes, and for a moment, I saw the reflection of each of his tears as if it were the entire world. "Then show me." The floodwaters erupted beneath us, an endless cataclysm, but amid the chaos, points of light emerged. Small, fragile, but real. I saw hands clasped in prayer. I saw parents hugging children. I saw old men singing hymns in a makeshift shelter. The water tried to swallow this light, but it couldn't. "She is not invincible," he said. The words cut me like a blade, and in that moment I understood. I was being forced to witness this, because I wouldn't have believed it if someone had told me. I needed to see with my own eyes what the water truly carried. Not just death, but supplication. Not just punishment, but warning. And the cruelest thing, hope. Even there, even when all was lost, there was a chance. Suddenly the vision drew me closer, no longer watching from above, but walking, or floating through the flooded streets. I could feel the cold water lapping at my now dead knees. I could hear people crying. I saw a mother trying to keep her child above water, every breath a battle. I saw a pastor dragging elderly people into a half-overturned school bus, transformed into a makeshift raft. I saw firefighters with mud-caked faces, shouting orders as they held on by a thread. And I saw others, sitting on still intact balconies, filming with their cell phones, commenting, "Jesus will punish more," as if it were a spectacle. I saw those who blamed politicians, others who blamed God, but almost no one blamed themselves. The waters rose. They invaded churches, gun shops, gas stations. They carried crosses ripped from lawns, flags rolled up like rags. Everything floated the same. Nothing was saved by appearances. It was then that I noticed a nauseating smell, not just of sewage and gasoline, but of rot. The thick mud moved as if alive. I saw hands sticking out of it, not bodies, hands made of words. "Why am I seeing this?" I screamed, my voice piercing the spiritual silence. Jesus, beside me, looked down at the mud, his face contorted in pain. These are the unspoken words. The mud bubbled. Hands clutched at anything solid. I saw unfinished sentences. "I'm sorry. I love you. Help me," choked out before they could be spoken. Each hand pulled down whatever it touched. "They weigh more than stone," he explained, his voice hoarse from crying. "What you don't say, the love you don't give, the prayers you refuse to say, it all sinks the world." I wanted to run, but the mud held me back. I felt the cold fingers of my own in action. I saw my hands form words I never said. "I'm sorry. Stay. Let's pray together." I tried to scream. The mud filled my mouth, shutting me up. Then Jesus touched my shoulder. The mud recoiled as if fearing the touch. I breathed, or thought I did. "This is what you don't understand," he said. "The world doesn't sink because of my will. It sinks because you silence it." I broke down in sobs. I saw couples fighting even when the water was up to their chests. I saw siblings refusing to hold hands to save each other. But I also saw something else. Amidst the mud, small flowers of light appeared. Prayers whispered in panic. Parents teaching their children to say, "Jesus, save us." An old man holding a stranger's hand as they both trembled. The mud could not swallow these flowers. "Is it too late?" I asked in a broken, childlike voice. Jesus looked at me, and even though he was crying, there was fire in his eyes. Not as long as there are people who remember to pray. The water trembled as if it had heard, as if surrendering for a moment. And I felt something change, not in the flood, but in me. I was still there, but the vision was taking me deeper, to the place where the greatest truth waited, ready to destroy me or recreate me. Mud and water vanished. In a blink, I was somewhere else, a formless space, filled with light and shadow. It was as if the world had been disassembled and stored in an infinite box. I hovered there without ground or sky, without a body, only pure consciousness. Jesus stood before me, but now he wasn't crying anymore. The tears had dried, leaving bright marks on his face. His gaze was terrible and beautiful, heavy as a million suns. "Now you understand," he said. His voice didn't shake the air. It shook myself. I couldn't speak. There was no lying there. There was no escape. Everything I was, my memories, my sins, my fears, was exposed like an open animal on the table. "Floods are not punishment," he continued. "They are a reflection." Images appeared around us, hovering in the darkness. I saw cities flooded, not just in Alabama, but elsewhere. Louisiana, India, Mozambique. I saw the water tear away lives and memories, but I also saw the causes: indifference, greed, silence, lack of prayer, lack of love. I saw the harsh truth. The flood did not come to punish. It came to show. The world screams, he said, but my children don't listen. The sentence pierced me. I remembered every time I said, I don't have time to pray. Every time I thought, it's not my problem. Every cynical laugh when someone talked about God. Why do you show me this? I begged, voiceless, just thinking. He came closer. I felt such immense heat that I thought it would burn me out of existence. Because you will forget. That sentence was like a verdict. I understood that if I returned, comfort would seduce me. Routine would blind me again. I don't want to forget, I cried. He placed his hand on what I thought was my face. There was no flesh, but I felt the touch. It was like having the entire universe pressed against me. Then remember this, he said, and the words came like thunder and a whisper at the same time. Every prayer is a shield, every word of love, a brick against collapse, every silence where there should be forgiveness, a crack in the dam. I saw the world rebuild for an instant, entire cities saved by the lights of prayer. I saw families holding on tight because someone, somewhere, prayed for them. I saw the waters recede before a single, Our Father, whispered in faith. Jesus then walked away, his face still marked with pain but illuminated by something greater. Show them this, he said. The light swallowed me. Everything exploded in a flash that tore through my being, and I fell. I fell back into the freezing water. For a moment, I felt like drowning again, but this time there was no terror. There was a mission, and then I woke up. The vision ended there, but his words burned within me like holy fire. Floods are not punishment. They are a lament, a warning, a final call to return. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.